Welcome back, focused learners. Let's jump right into today's explainer because we're tackling a deeply emotional, super common, yet totally misunderstood relationship dynamic. We're going to break down the pursuer-distancer cycle, and specifically, we'll look at how nonverbal behavioral shifts can actually reignite female desire and break that painful cycle of marital detachment. If you've ever felt like you and your partner are caught in this endless loop where one person is constantly trying to pull the other closer only to watch them pull further away, well, this explainer is going to shed some serious light on what's actually happening beneath the surface. Here is our quick roadmap for today. First, the dynamic of detachment. Second, the logical fix trap. Third, the nonverbal shift. Fourth, a 28-day transformation timeline. And finally, a systemic approach.
All right, part one, the dynamic of detachment, or understanding unresponsive love.
At the very core of this detachment is a really painful reality. It's a state where a wife still deeply loves her husband, she values him and their life together, but her physical and somatic desire has just completely vanished. Her body simply stops responding to him as a romantic partner. And this leads to a heartbreaking search engine query we see all too often. Why doesn't my wife want me anymore? This really reveals the profound unspoken pain the husband is going through. He feels this quiet devastation caused by the rejection, a pain that he usually hides directly from his wife. We absolutely have to validate this lived experience. It is an incredibly isolating feeling to be in a committed relationship and have to ask a search engine why your partner has pulled away. But we also have to look at the other side of the system, right? On the wife's side, a major symptom of this disconnect is that she actively avoids physical intimacy. She might even pretend to be asleep just to avoid the whole situation. In fact, she actually feels relief when her husband stops trying to initiate. Why? Well, because in this dynamic, her partner's needs have started to feel like just another burdensome demand stacked on top of the kids, work, and just general life responsibilities. In that moment, she stops viewing him as a partner and starts viewing him as a source of pressure. And naturally, that leads directly to his slow emotional withdrawal and a total loss of confidence. Moving on to part two, the logical fix trap. Let's look at why trying harder usually fails. So there is a massive breakdown between intent and perception here. A husband might try conventional, logical methods, right? Buying flowers, planning date nights, initiating those direct conversations to just talk it out, all with the pure intent to connect. But here's the catch. His wife's subconscious actually perceives these gestures as burdensome demands. It feels like a pressure to perform. The very tools he's using to try and bridge the gap are exactly what her brain is interpreting as a threat to her energy. The source material gives this dynamic a clinical name, and honestly, defining it really helps depersonalize the blame. It's called the chase mechanism. In this dynamic, direct questioning, like asking, "Why don't you want me?" and any effortful pursuit are inherently perceived as pressure. This triggers an automatic psychological retreat response in the wife. It's literally a reflex. Every logical attempt to fix things just pushes her further away. And here's the absolutely crucial psychological barrier to understand. The wife herself cannot logically articulate why she pulled away. It's a psychological pattern, not a rational choice. She doesn't have an answer to give, which makes direct questioning completely futile. So we land on this pivotal question: why do logical fixes fail? Well, they fail because the withdrawal of desire was never a logical decision in the first place. You simply cannot use logic to talk someone out of a feeling they didn't use logic to get into. That cerebral, frustrating loop of trying to talk it out is just a dead end. We need a totally different approach. Which brings us to part three, the non-verbal shift. This is all about triggering the subconscious. The real game changer here is realizing that female desire in this dynamic cannot be logically negotiated. You can't earn it through effortful verbal pursuit. Instead, the critical turning point comes from a unilateral change in behavior. Yep, no verbal negotiation required. By using tools like the Relatio program mentioned in our source text, a husband can completely change his presence and behavior to bypass the logical mind entirely. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you stop talking to the mind and you start speaking directly to the body and the subconscious. This shift in the husband's behavior is the literal key that unlocks the whole pattern. Section 4, the 28-day transformation. Let's look at a somatic or body-based timeline. Tracking this remarkable timeline, we can actually map out the phases driven entirely by the wife's subconscious reactions. Notice just how gradual and organic this whole thing is. It starts with an initial, kind of undefined feeling. then moves to visual attraction, then emotional reconnection, then unconscious physical closeness until finally active initiation of intimacy. Over the course of about 28 days, the wife's body slowly remembers what her mind had totally forgotten. Let's break down exactly what each of these milestones looks like in real life. These milestones are subtle, for sure, but they are incredibly powerful. Initially, she simply feels an undefined warmth when he enters a room. She feels the change before she can intellectually identify it. By day 9, she catches herself watching him with attraction across the kitchen, looking at him in a way she probably hasn't in years. By day 14, his humor starts landing again. Genuine laughter and smiles return, which signals a deep emotional reconnection. And by day 21, her body instinctively moves closer to him on the couch. Notice how closing the emotional distance organically and automatically closes the physical distance. It's amazing. And all of this culminates beautifully on day 28. On the 28th day, totally reversing the long-standing pattern of avoidance, the wife actually initiates physical intimacy. And what is the husband's response? He simply asks, "Are you sure?" This short 3-word quote is just so powerful. It brilliantly illustrates his profound awareness that the long-standing pattern has finally truly been reset. He isn't rushing it, he's just calmly acknowledging the massive systemic shift that has just occurred. Finally, part 5, a systemic approach and what your next moves should be. You see, a relationship is a connected system. When you shift one part of that system, like when the husband fundamentally changes his behavioral input, it automatically triggers a new response in the other part. So if you're a husband facing a similar situation, your next moves require shifting your part of that system. Step 1, and this is the absolute most important first move. Stop asking your wife why she pulled away. Stop the verbal pursuit. Just stop trying to talk her into feeling desire. Step 2, take the relation quiz to identify the specific dynamic that killed the desire in your unique relationship. And step 3, implement the day-by-day plan to unilaterally shift your behavior and trigger her subconscious response. It is a highly structured, step-by-step path right out of the detachment. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative question to really chew on. What happens to a relationship when you stop trying to convince the mind and start speaking directly to the subconscious? We've seen today that the answer is pretty profound. By shifting nonverbal behavior, you can bypass that frustrating logical fix trap and organically reignite connection. I really hope this explainer invites you to look at your own relationships through this entirely new systemic lens. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Focus Learners, and keep exploring the systems that shape our lives.